we're very, very lucky to have as our first speaker today, Elizabeth Luard, who is really a doyenne of food writing. She's a redoubtable traveller, writer, researcher, as we're about to find out, artist as well. She's the author of many, many books, including Sacred Food and European Peasant Cookery, both of which I would recommend to you, and also a wonderful book on French cooking, which I use all the time. And I'm very excited, Elizabeth, to hear your talk.
I'm a food writer. I'm not an academic. Most of my research is done by going to places and talking to people and looking in backyards and into marketplaces and asking questions and eating and doing anything I can to get under the skin of wherever I am. As a child, I was brought up in South America, because I was a stepdaughter of a diplomat, and there was a second family. I spent a lot of time on the other side of the green baize door, which meant that I would go home with my mother's cook or maids at the weekend, and began to understand there was a completely different way of living that went on among when people were growing or husbanding, or actually there was a lot of fishing there too, because we were on the River Plate, and that this was a kind of subtext that wasn't really looked at much. And I was probably 11 when I left South America, and then went to a boarding school, and then had children and decided that I wanted to take them to Andalusia, because I was tired of being asked, because I had 4 small children, either was I a school, because everybody thought that was too many children, usually another one added on if somebody had a friend, or was I a Catholic? In which case I said, no, I do it for pleasure, and once a year is all it takes. So, because I was married to a writer, just sort of filling you in a bit on the background of why I do what I do. Because I was married to a writer, novelist, and he used to hit writer's block quite regularly, I had to add a way of earning a living. I had to add to the family income. And I had one skill, which was that, apart from very good shorthand typing, which wasn't really very useful in Andalusia in the remote Cork Oak Valley, but I could paint. I had a training as a fairly basic, and so I began to do that. I began to do botanical painting, because that was all around, bird painting, because again that was all around, and my eldest son became my spotter. So I'd sit out in the forest, and he would sit there saying, spoonbill down to branches. So he got quite an early training in doing these things. So my career developed from that, and it is totally what Sarah was saying, which is that food is a way of communicating. You can communicate outwards by asking people to come in to join you at table, or you can find yourself invited to join other people. And if I don't understand how somebody's cooking or what they're using, or whether there are certain spices or something, I can simply do a little sketch and they'll say, yes, that. But it's the kind of, unlike photography, it's a medium which means that you can go into people's lives in a much... I've been invited to join weddings, possibly not funerals, but any celebration that people have. I can be really welcome and taken in. And this, as a weapon of actually being able to join another group, I think because I was peripatetic as a child, I have a sort of instinct to go and hang out with the group over there. I mean, in a church, they say, are you part of the group? I instinctively say yes, even if they're talking in Swedish and I have no Swedish at all, because it seems to me to be it's a sort of natural reaction. So the first book that I wrote was European Peasant Cookery. Now, I suppose I think that cooking is a feminist issue. It's not valued because we don't get paid for it. on a domestic situation. And the way that women cook at home is pretty different from the way that men or women cook in professional kitchens. I think that's men cooking. These fishermen in Szeged in Hungary said you have to try Szeged fish soup. It's very, very special. Everybody knows all about it. And they went out and got a keep with fresh fish, mostly carp, perch, tench, whatever it was that was in. And then made a great big soup with paprika, because we are in Hungary, so that absolutely says who you are. We pick up smells. We pick up smells on each other. If we'd fed our spies on the diet of wherever they were getting into and told them to keep their trap shut, they'd have got away with it. So that's the reason why when we share food, we need to smell right. We don't broach important things until we have shared the first course. We talk about anything, we sort of run around a bit, and when we've eaten something, actually it can just be bread. But there is a communality that then develops. We trust each other. If somebody leaves in the middle, or the habit of going lunch here, breakfast, first course there, that's a really disturbing thing. But basically, if we all share food, the basic idea is that we can trust each other. As with all people on diaspora who are not, among their own, they hold very strongly to their traditions. So what you're seeing basically is food as play acting. You'll recognise here, which is we can have a bit of, I don't know, what have we got in the background? We got talking. What you're seeing there is the very classic, the braided bread. When I don't have a husband lose it, I can talk over it. But I both wrote it and have done the background. Now, that is, it's part Russian, because the Russian braid was put in, a woman cut her braid off when she was married, and it was buried with her. So that says a whole lot of things. There's egg in the dough, and egg is a symbol of resurrection. This is the Easter bread among the Ruthenians. And when I was filming there, there was a bunch of people from the Ukraine, from Kiev, and they said, "What are you doing filming this?" And I said, "Well, we're filming the food habits among the Ruthenians. What are you doing here?" And they said, "We're looking at our roots." So the loss of this knowledge is very important to people. Now this is scrambled egg. Easter's always eggs. Scrambled egg going in a dripping pot and then hung up to make a large egg. There it sits. And that is then the importance of festival food, is that it's sweetened. The idea that you wear costume at this point is absolutely natural. It's not, the one without the other is not a possibility. So you can see very... It could only go into a pan of boiling water for about 3 minutes. Basically dumplings. Now we're back home again and unpacking, and this is the Easter feast.
Mama Anna gets us organised. There's still the setting out to be done. Festival food must be a treat, the exact opposite of the usual diet. The egg custard slices up just like cheese.
That is the egg.
Meat is the real treat.
Ham, because you've got it left. You're very proud of that. A lot of Easter in Easter.
The finest ham.
The Easter
last
feast
of the
is
home-cured
Husvet, Feast of Meat.
And smoked bacon, a sign of careful husbandry to have some still left over from the autumn pig killing.
So these things are basically just reinforces the power of what we recognise. It's why we call the Germans Kraus, cabbage. Why do we call them cabbage? Sauerkraut, of course we do. We call the French. I think I've got a picture of a frog to show you later. Because we are saying they eat outlandish food. Not only that, their olive oil, they use too much olive oil, they use too much spices. They use too much garlic. They use too much onion. We make a difference between who we are and who they are by what they eat. I had this theory for some time, at a time when I was working as a botanical painter for Miriam Rothschild. And she said, "Oh, Elizabeth, you're always talking about that, you know, that kind of thing. We don't have the receptors." Because I said, the reason that we eat together is because we need to smell right to each other. And once we smell right, it's okay. Which is why, do you remember when Tony Blair left the Italian, there was a conference in Italy, finance, whatever it was, and there was a big dinner at the end, and he didn't stay. And there was a great fuss, and everybody said he didn't stay. Because basically, that idea of sharing food is very deeply embedded in us. If somebody doesn't eat our salt, break our bread, when somebody comes to the house, and you let them in, and you say, "Would you like a cup of coffee? Would you like tea? Would you like a biscuit? Would you?" And then eventually we say, "And have a glass of water." Because there is something in us that says, if this person doesn't eat the same, he won't accept food, he is not going to be he's not going to be a friend. He's almost in kind of enemy. Which is why also when people come to your house and they have funny dietary situations, lots of us do nowadays, and somebody comes in and says, "I brought my own food," that's the worst. Because you really, you know, how can you trust somebody who brings their own food? Oh, the big number one taboo is, of course, first we don't eat people. How interesting. Then we don't eat, actually, we start off not eating people who are related to us. And then we go on to not eating people who are of the same village or clan. And then we go on to not eating people that we vaguely know by sight. And when I was walking in the outback among Maoris, and they said, "Sure, we ate people. You know, first we didn't eat people we knew, and then the missionaries came, we ate missionary. And then, because they were slower and didn't know how to run away. And then the missionaries brought in pig, so we ate pig. So basically our progress is, don't eat people, then don't eat pets. We are really at a point where we don't eat pets now. We don't want to eat little hamsters or guinea pigs or anything like that. Then we don't eat anything with its eyes pointing in front because it looks a bit like us. And then we don't eat warm-blooded creatures, and then we don't eat birds, and then we don't eat fish, and then we're stuck with eating vegetables and grains. And then we're really nice people. And the people over there who are eating pig or meat are not nice people at all. So that's basically, I mean, with taboos, most things come from that. And the other one comes from this differentiating. You know, they eat too much olive oil. It's not a taboo, but it's basically, that's the taboos come from, either from practical, but having come from practical, like the pig business, they become part of who we are. So they take on a different position, really.